Today I'm going to show you how I make royal icing. This is the recipe that I always go to whenever I'm going to be decorating sugar cookies. These are the ingredients that you'll need, and let's get started. I'm going to start off with my stand mixer here. You can also use a bowl with a hand mixer, that would be just fine. I've already added my powdered sugar, and I'm going to add in my cream of tartar. That helps to stabilize the icing and prevents it from weeping when you store it. I'm also going to add in my egg white. If you have a problem consuming raw egg whites or don't want to use them, you can always use pasteurized egg whites. I'm just going to turn my mixer on to low and combine that. And once that starts to come together, I'm going to stop my mixer. And any powdered sugar that's stuck to the sides of the bowl, I'm going to tamp down and make sure that that gets combined as well. And after about 30 seconds, I'm going to stop my mixer, add in my vanilla extract, and I'm going to turn my mixer on to high, and I'm going to beat this for just a minute or two. At this point, the icing is kind of like a sticky, gluey consistency. So I like to thin it out just a little bit by adding 1 to 2 teaspoons of water or so. Then I'm going to turn my mixer back on to high, and I'm going to beat this for a good 3 minutes. After 3 minutes, this is what the consistency should look like. If you don't want to pipe out your icing and don't want to, get real fancy with the decorating, you can go ahead and use the frosting or icing just as it is. To color my icing, I prefer to use AmeriColor gel paste food colorings. These are an ultra concentrated food coloring. You can buy them at Hobby Lobby. You can also buy them online. They're relatively inexpensive. And since it is so concentrated, you want to start off with just a few drops of food coloring. You can always add more to make it darker, but it's quite a bit harder to lighten up the color. Now, to thin out my icing so I can use it in a pastry bag, I'm going to thin it out with a little bit of water. You want to start out with maybe a half a teaspoon of water and thin it out until it comes to a 5-second consistency. Basically what that means is that ribbons that fall off of a spoon get absorbed back into the icing within 5 seconds. If you find that you made it too thin, you can add a little bit more powdered sugar to this to thicken it up just a little bit. And before you add this to a pastry bag, you want to make sure and cover it and let it sit for about 20 minutes to make sure that any air bubbles that you've stirred into it come up to the surface and pop. You don't want the air bubbles in your icing when you're piping. And speaking of pastry bags, you have several options to choose from for icing. You can use a cloth or a canvas pastry bag. You can use disposable pastry bags. You can use a parchment cone. You can even use a plastic baggie with the corners snipped off. Any of these options will accommodate a decorating tip, or you could just snip off the corner and use it as is. Once you get your icing into a pastry bag, you can go ahead and start decorating your cookies however you so choose. I prefer to flood my sugar cookies. Basically what that entails is doing an outline around the outside edge of the cookie about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. And you want to start from the outside and fill in. And when you have the proper consistency, you can see how the icing just floods right into itself. This creates a nice, even, and smooth finish on top of the cookie. If there's any holes, you can go ahead and use a toothpick to fill in those holes. Usually they just flood right together. Now, before you store your cookies or wrap them, you want to make sure that they are dry. You want them to dry for a good 12 to 24 hours. Make sure that the icing sets up nice and firm, and then you can go ahead and package them or store them any way you so choose. And that is how I make royal icing. Go ahead and check out my other videos for more decorating ideas, and thanks so much for watching.